this one with Jonny, I am really looking forward to. I think it's going to be great because we're talking all about animation techniques that will wow your audience. So we're going to be really getting into the details of how you can achieve some effects that are really going to elevate your videos. So this is going to be a half-hour session, so we're going to try and stick to that pretty closely, but we're going to save a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. So as always, if you've got any questions, you can put them in the chat box, the question box, as we go through, particularly with this session, as we are going to be showing you how to do a few things live. If you think of any questions as we're in those steps, then please do put them in, because we can tick those off and show you how they're done as we're going through. This session will be recorded. I know there will probably be a lot of people who want to watch it back, just because we will be showing you step by step. So we'll be sending that out later today for you to catch up on. But Jonny, if you don't mind flicking onto our introductions. So you are probably familiar and maybe sick of me by now, but I am Naomi, the Sparkle Content Marketing Manager, and I am really pleased today to be joined again by Jonny, who is very much an expert when it comes to all things, particularly Videoscribe, but especially helping people use Videoscribe better and create more impressive effects and animations to level up their videos and really get more out of the software. So if we jump into the first technique that we're going to be showing you today, so we have 4 different techniques we're going to be showing you that you can do in Videoscribe to create really unique and captivating animations. So the first technique we're going to be talking about might sound pretty simple. It's fading in and erasing images or text. So Jonny, if you can just move on to our example, we'll show you what we mean by this. So essentially, it's a great animation technique to use if you're moving from one subject to another. You want to, in this case, you can see our 1 change to an A just by fading out, and our other element was erased. So if you've got a scene and you want to change kind of one element for another because the story is developing, then it's a great option to use to make a sort of seamless transition. And it also works really well for information you're saying, maybe this was the belief before, but it's now changed. You can erase that out and add in the new belief or whatever it is. So that's a brief introduction to it, but I'll hand over to Jonny to show you exactly how you can achieve this effect for yourself.
Cool, thank you, Naomi. So let me just go over into Videoscribe. So I've basically set up the kind of starting point for each of these demos. So this is the starting point for this one. And like Naomi says, basically, it's very useful to be able to basically make things disappear. So Videoscribe is very good at adding things to the canvas. You can move them in, you can draw them, things like this. But this is a good way of getting things to disappear. So the first one is to fade out. So I'm just going to play what I've got so far, so you know sort of where we're starting. So we've got the 1 fades in and the 2 is drawn. So that's sort of where we're starting. Oops. So the first thing I want to do is to erase the 1. So what I'm going to do is go to this point in the timeline, and then I'm going to search for an image called blank out, which is our little blank image. We've actually got 2. This one here is like a rectangle, so I'm going to use this one. And you basically place this sort of white rectangle on top of your image. Obviously, you would match the background color if you had another color as your background. So I've put that on top. I'm going to set the camera. And then in order to make this give the appearance of the 1 fading out, which is what we want, we actually need to obviously use the fade in option. So we're fading in this blank out image. And I'm just going to take some of these times down to make that a little bit quicker. Okay, so let's just go from the end of this sequence and see what we've added. So we play from here. After drawing the number 2, it's going to fade out. So that's what we wanted. That's my next demo, by the way. Okay, so after that, in this case, what we're going to do is draw something else in this space. So what I'm going to do is go to the original image, copy it, and paste it. So now I've got a copy of exactly the same image on top of my blank out. and I'm going to just change it. So in this case, I'm going to change that for, I'm going to go back into this alphabets and symbols folder and just choose an A. Yeah, and I copied and pasted it just so that it's in the same place and I don't have to set the camera and things. I do that quite a lot. And for this one, we're going to keep this as a fade in like this. So I'll preview that in a second. What I'm going to now do is move on to the second one over here. I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to show you an erase effect rather than a fade out. So again, I'm going to go in and add that same blank out shape again. And this time I'm going to put it on top of the 2. Just stretch it so it completely hides it. Set the camera. And this time I'm going to go in and I'm going to leave it as draw. So I do want the draw effect, but I don't want to use a standard hand. What I'm going to do is go into my library of hands and choose one which is holding an eraser. And I'm also, while I'm in here, I'm just going to quickly take the timings of this one down as well. So there we go. So if I just preview this bit here, you'll see that it erases that. That was quite quick. So we come back and I'll actually make that a little bit slower. And like before, what I'll do is I'll copy the original image from there, paste it back in after this blank out, and I'm just going to swap this one for a B. And so this will have the same properties as the first one, so it'll draw. So let me just show you that whole sequence so you can see how that works now. So we're using fade in on the left and draw on the right, just as the different examples. Fading out and fading in again, and then the erase effect with the different hand, and then redrawing. So there we go. So that's a little really useful. There's all sorts of ways you might want to use these different erasing and fading out techniques. But yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Definitely. I think it's one of those ones that seems so simple on the surface, but it is super effective once you've built it into your story. And like you said, you can get those creative ways to bring elements in as well as out. So that was our first technique. If we just move through to the second one. So for the second one, we're talking all about moving elements in to help guide your audience through the scene. So the example for this that we have is a hot air balloon that will come in from the bottom of the screen and basically guide the viewer's eye up into the next scene. And obviously there's no harm in having your scenes move through without any of these elements. You can just set the camera to a different place to move through. But I think it's really nice because it means there's no break in your story. You can actually use those elements to keep the narrative going really nicely. So it's just a more pleasing experience for the viewer to see that journey. And again, this is a super simple thing that you can, as Jonny's about to show you, do in just a couple of clicks. So definitely one to incorporate in some of your next videos if you haven't already. But I'll hand over to Jonny for the little masterclass.
Right, cool. Okay, here we go. So this is the setup for this one. So basically, it's got a background, and at the moment, the balloon image is it is moving in, but it's moving into this point here. So I'll just show you what this looks like, just so you know where we're starting. The background fades in and the balloon moves in, and at the moment it's stopping here. So normally with the move in, you move something into your scene, into the actual camera view. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to just take this balloon and keep it moving. I want it to keep moving until it's here. So this is effectively out of the camera view. It's basically off camera. So if I go back to the camera view, it's off camera. So it's still going to move in, it's still going to come along that same path, but it's going to keep going and basically disappear off the top. So that in itself might be useful. We'll just show you that. So things don't have to stop on the screen, they can just keep going. But like you can see, that kind of draws your attention up there. And so that makes you think, oh, what's up there? So we can then move up there. So we can go up to this new scene, which is here. And let's actually put the balloon up here and then carry on the story up here. And the balloon's kind of taken us up into this new scene. And then we can add something else. So for example, we could add a bird here. Let's look through our animals, and we could bring in this bird image. So the bird is going to have a camera set at this new position here, and just to sort of keep things in the same kind of context, I will also use moving for this one. And because we want to give the illusion that the balloon and the bird are moving by themselves, we want to use no hand. So no hand is very useful for these sorts of things. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what it looks like now. So the balloon goes up, we follow it, and then the bird comes in here. So there we go. So that's that. I think that can be quite useful. This next thing I'm going to show you is actually another technique. It's allowing you to create a pre-drawn scene. So if we want a background here, let's add in a background from our scenery folder, and let's find some sky somewhere. So we can use this. So this is going to be our background. Just make it nice and big. But you can see that at the moment it's on top of the balloon, because the balloon came from the previous scene. If we were to add this background now, it would be on top of the balloon. So actually what I want to do is to pre-draw this background so that it's already there when we move up to this scene. So to pre-draw, there's basically 3 steps you need to go through. So the first one is I'm going to need to move this to before the balloon. And now I can see that maybe I want to put the balloon in that space there. Okay, so I've moved the background to before the image that moves in there. That's the first step. The second step is, because this is actually going to be drawn off scene, it's going to be drawn in advance. I don't want to spend any time on it because we're not going to see this being drawn, or not drawn, but introduced. So all the times are 0. And then the third step, which is the real key one, is that the camera position for this is not going to be up here at all. It's going to be down at this point. So we're going to introduce this image while the camera is still pointing down here. So if you look at the timeline, it's going to it's going to fade in this background, and then without us noticing, it's going to add the second scene background up there, and then we'll have the move in. So let's just see if that works. So balloon goes up, we pan up, but the background's already there and the balloon's on top of the background. So that, I'll just show that once more so you can just see that. So at this point, the background's already up there. And then when we pan up during that transition, the background is already there. So that's it's a couple of different techniques there, but some useful stuff, hopefully.
I think it's just really nice to see how in just a couple of those things, it really only took you, a couple of minutes, you've created a whole new effect and a whole new way of viewing the information, which I think hopefully for everyone who's joined, you can see how you can really quickly, with these little tricks and techniques, start leveling up your scribes. I also want to flag the scenery images that you mentioned, because they are super useful. I know if I'm not sure where to begin with a scribe as well, they can be really helpful, because like the park there and the clouds, they're sort of a fully set scene for you, and then you can just add on top of that. So they're also a great little thing to flag while we're on it. But we'll move through to the third technique. So Jonny gave a little flavor of this in the final of his little demo there, but we are talking about how to zoom out to show a summary. So this is really great if you've particularly set up your information as a sort of collage style or a mind map, because at the end you want to zoom out and see all of that information together so you can take it in as one thing. And one of the best examples I've seen of this was from a local council, and they were basically talking through the services that were offered in their area through the scribe, and then at the end it zoomed out and it had made a full picture of the map of their sort of district. And I just thought that was fantastic, because it left you thinking with a bigger picture of everything they offer as a whole. So it can be super effective. But I will let Jonny talk us through how to do that.
Excellent, thank you. So let's skip over here. So yeah, so what we're doing here is basically moving the camera at a point when we don't need to add another image. So normally you move to a new scene or you move to a new camera view and you add something there, you add an image or you add some text or whatever. This is really useful if you want to move the camera at a point where you don't have a new image there. So in this case, we're doing it to zoom out to show a summary, which is quite a useful thing, but it could be used in other cases. So let me just show you where we're starting. So we've got the title in the middle. It's going to sort of around the title of this topic, it's going to draw some related images, in this case, cars. And at the end of the last one, it's just going to go straight on, in this case, to our second topic, which is bikes over here. And we want it to sort of pan out and show a summary of this area here so that we can sort of conclude this topic before moving on. Okay, so to do this, like I say, we don't have a new element at this point. So we basically need to add one. We need to add an extra element, and it's going to be basically a hidden element. So we tend to use a camera for this. It could be anything because we're going to make it invisible, but we tend to use a camera so we know that we're moving the camera, and we just put it out of the way. So at this point, we draw the last car, and then we want to be sort of in a nice position, maybe like this, zoomed out so we can see all of this. So that's going to be the camera setting for this new hidden object. And then we can either hide it by moving off screen. So I often do that by just using the arrow keys. So we can have it off camera like we did before, so we don't actually see it. Or what we actually tend to do is we just go into properties and make it 0% solid, so basically invisible. So it's still there, but it's basically invisible. We just pop it up in the top corner. So the other thing about this is we're not going to want to spend any time drawing this image because it's invisible. We're going to use the transition time from the end of the last element to get us to zoom out. So that's going to be used. And then we do want to pause on this element. So this is going to be the pause at this point when we're sort of looking at a summary. So let's have a quick look at this. So it now goes around our vehicles, our cars. We talk about each of these. And at the end, we can now zoom to this point and it pauses before it goes on. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to quickly repeat that just so you can see exactly how it all builds up. So this is our second topic, which is bikes. So what we can do is start to add, in this case, some bikes. And we're going to have the same kind of pattern where we're talking about bikes around this central topic here. And I'm not setting the camera for these because I'm deliberately letting it zoom in on each one, which is what it will do by default. But you could set the camera if you wanted to. So we've got some different bikes, just one more. Okay, so that's the first part. Now we add our camera. And again, we want to position it. I want this in the center, and I'm just going to position it, say like that. And that's the position I want to store as the camera position for my new element, my hidden element. And then like before, I'm going to make this transparent, and I don't want it to animate. And again, I'll increase the pause a little bit there. So this is then part 2, same sort of thing. And we should hopefully pan out here to this section. So there we go. Hopefully that's helpful as well.
Perfect. I love the camera for the camera as well. I think that is just like such a nice little touch. But yeah, so hopefully that's a useful technique for anyone who is sharing sort of mind map or collections of information like that. But the final technique that we'll get into, and we'll try and whiz through this so we have a bit of time for questions, is using the morph option in Videoscribe to grow and shrink images. So this is really effective if you want to show more movement in your scene. So in this case, you can see we've had a man come out of his house and go to the office, and we're using that transition to create the illusion that he is in a perspective and he can go sort of towards us and away from us. And this really can add an extra dimension to your scenes. I know I use this a lot in my own scribes where, say, I've got a golf ball and I want it to look like it's been hit and it's flying across the screen. There's so much you can do with this, and the more you play with it, the more you'll find different ways to use it. So hopefully this will be a super good example to finish on. So I'll hand over to you, Jonny.
Nice one. Okay, so again, I've got the start of this set up. So I'll just play this so you can see where I'm starting. Oops, not delete it. I do that sometimes. Too close. Okay, so we've got Ross fades in and he fades in, and then he says, hi, I'm off to the office. So that's all we've got so far. So with Morph, you often would use Morph to transform one image to another image. But if you've got the first image and the second image are the same, then you can get these kind of moving, rotating, growing, shrinking ideas. So what we want is a copy of our character here. And what we're going to do is take the first one in the timeline and place it over the door and make it nice and small, which is the starting position. And for this one, I don't want it to draw, so the effect is going to be it just instantly starts to move towards the middle. So we're not going to have any pause or anything on that. So that's the first one. The second one, basically we're going to change it so it's a morph, and you obviously have to say what you're morphing from. So these are all my options. I want to choose the first copy of this character. And then this is how long it's going to take to morph. So if I just quickly show you that. So you see that then morphs into the foreground. So then to add the second part of that, which is the shrinking effect, I'm going to add, if I go to buildings, I'm going to add the office, which is this one. I'm going to set the camera for that. Oops, set the camera for that. And just get it to draw quite quickly. So then again, I want to copy my character here. And then after this is drawn, I'm going to paste a copy in there. And same as before, I'm going to go in and change this to morph. Well, it is morph, but I'm going to change it so that it morphs from the second character here. Now, in this case, when he goes towards the door, I don't want him to stay in the doorway. In fact, let me put him in the doorway first. I don't want him to stay there. I want him to disappear as if he's actually going inside. So to make him disappear, just like before, I'm going to take this down to 0. So you'll still see the transformation as it goes towards the door, but then the final image, it'll actually be invisible. So just very quickly, we will show that sequence. That didn't work, so let me quickly go in. I think I must have not changed this properly. Yeah, it's still on that one. So let's make sure it's on the second one. Okay, and I'll just show the last part there. There we go. And what I would do then is obviously, I haven't got time now, but I would use the blank out option, the fade out option, to fade out this speech bubble before that happens. So I won't bother doing that now though. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you, Jonny, for talking us through those. I know it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. There is loads more detail we could go into these, but we wanted to give you a flavour of sort of just how easy they are to create, and just in not much time at all, you can really start adding these into your videos easily. So if we just flick onto our question screen, I can see we've had a couple of points come through, but if you do have any more questions, do put them in there. Thank you to Harriet for saying this was helpful for you. We've had a question from Linda that is just around help with setting the camera. So maybe if you could just give us just a quick explanation of how that works as well, because I know it's not always completely clear.
Okay, probably better if I just sort of have this screen up while I'm doing that. So basically, whenever you're setting the camera, I'll just go to a blank area. Whenever you're adding things, so let's just add this here. At the moment, this hasn't got a set camera. It's got the default. So the default is, if I go to its camera position, it's just kind of zoomed in with it in the middle. So if you don't actually click to set the camera, it'll always zoom in, which is what I let it do for that part of the video. So you want to sort of think about where you want it to be. So if I want it to be in the top corner here, this size, I position it like that, and then you can either click set camera here, or you've got another option to do it here on the timeline. So now every time you click this button, you're saying, for this element in the timeline, remember this view, this camera view. So if you're setting scenes, like for example this one, what you can do is set up the scene by putting all your elements onto it in the right place as you want them to appear. You can then select all of them. So there's the first one and there's the last one. So I'm using Shift to highlight all of those. And I can just say, look, I want the same camera position for all of these, and click it like that. But you want to make sure that every element has a camera set for it. Yeah. And the other thing to remember is that every time you introduce a new, if I go over here, every time you introduce a new element, you have the opportunity to change or move the camera, which is what we did with this element. So this element, we use this to change the camera to zoom out. So each element can either be in the same scene and have the same camera position as the previous element, or you can use it as an opportunity to move, zoom in, zoom out, and have a new camera position for that particular element.
Perfect. Thank you to Steve, who's just said that seeing the shortcuts you've just shown is going to save a lot of time making his scribes. I think we have time for a couple more questions. So I can see we've just had a flurry come in. So Gabriel has asked, is it possible to use the erase effect even using a non-blank background?
Okay, that's a bit tricky. So obviously what you're doing is you're not actually erasing it, you're overlaying something on top of it, and you're actually drawing that. You just actually make it look like you're erasing what's underneath. So like I said, if you've got a background of a different color, you can just change the color of that blank out object to match the background color. If you've got a large object behind, so if it's like on top of the house, you've got a person and you want to look like you're erasing the person, you could use the house again. You could put the house again, or the whatever image is behind, you could put that on again exactly in the same place, so copy and paste it, and then you're actually redrawing that on top of. So you can do in some cases, but if your image on top is on top of multiple things, then unfortunately I can't think of a way of doing that off the top of my head.
Okay, so yeah, so just a case of tweaking depending on the current scene you've got and how complex it is. Perfect. We have had just a couple more comments saying people now understand how to use Morph, so that is awesome, that we have helped give a little bit of insight into how to use that. I'm conscious of time, so
the demo is quite quick, so if it's new to you, then you might need to rewatch it, and we will send you the video so you can rewatch it. But yeah, do just play about with it and try it out, and then you'll soon get the hang of it, I think.
Definitely. If you can just flick us onto the next slide, Jonny, we just have our email address, as always, there, marketing@sparkle.com. So if you have any questions for us, for Jonny, about any of these techniques, we'd be more than happy to help you further to get to grips with them. We know this was a very quick overview, but yeah, you can rewatch this. We'll send it out after this session. And we will come back to any questions that we haven't got to online. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you all on the final session of today, which is our That's a Wrap session, where we're going to be reflecting on the week. So it'd be great to see you there this afternoon, or whatever time it is where you are. For us in the UK, it will be our afternoon. But I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, and see you again soon. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.